It is good to be back. It was a great week with Jen and Addie and all the family and friends that were gathered together. There was a huge group of us all together, cousins and aunts and uncles and friends all gathered around. Jen's currently in the process of making her way around the country because I'm convinced everyone in Croatia is related in some way or another. So she needs to visit with all of those who she hasn't seen in a few years. She had gotten there about 2 weeks before me and had been having a great time, and still is having a great time. But she had said to me early on that Addie was having a little bit of trouble with jet lag and with sleeping, and Jen, Addie, and I all slept in the same room. So anytime one of us moved, the other ones would wake up, and because of that, there was a lot of sleepless nights. First day that I had gotten into the country, I took one look at Jen and I said, "You're tired, aren't you?" Which, by the way, isn't the best way to greet your wife when you haven't seen her for a couple weeks. But she quickly said, "Yeah, I am." She said, "The family has been great, a lot of help, but you know, it's a 2-year-old that she's watching by herself all the time." So I said, "You know what? I've had 2 weeks on my own. I've missed Addie, and I'm ready and energized and ready to take her. So why don't I at least take her for the day for you? We'll go to a hotel that's downtown. They have a pool there. She and I will go swimming. They also have a spa. So why don't you go get a massage and a pedicure and relax, and I'll go play with Addie over at the pool." She said, "Oh, that sounds great. But you know what I'd like even better than that?" I said, "What?" She said, "I want to go to sleep." So we left Jen back at her grandparents' house to nap the day away, and I went to take Addie to the pool to go swimming. One thing to know about our family dynamic is that while I love being a father and love playing with Addie and you know, assuming that role, I have no common sense for parenting at all. That Jen has to tell me when to feed Addie. She has to tell me when to change her diaper, what clothing is appropriate. I have no sense for that at all. So luckily, Jen wanted to make sure that her daughter would come back in one piece. So she set me up with a good bag packed with everything that I need. And as I was ready to leave, she had me go through it to make sure I understood what everything was and how I was supposed to use it. So we were going through, and I saw her water shoes and her swimming diaper and her little 2-year-old bikini and the whole thing. And I saw water wings in there. And I was surprised because Addie had never worn those before. You know, those inflatable things you put on your arms to swim. And Jen said, no, she started using it in the sea first, but then also in the pool. And she said, Addie loves it. Because Addie can go off on her own, she can kind of flop around. It gives her a little bit more confidence that she won't dunk under the water. I said, okay. So we go over to the hotel, and we go get changed in the changing rooms. We make our way out to the pool. And Addie's walking around cute as can be in her little 2-year-old bikini and her water shoes, and she has her water wings on her hands. I jump into the pool, and I get ready to have her come on in alongside me. I was just going to kind of drop her right in, and went to put her water wings on her. As soon as I started to put them on, though, she started fighting and getting upset. No, Daddy, no, no, no. Well, at first I thought she just wanted to do them on her own. She's 2, and we have those moments now. So I handed them to her, and she wanted nothing to do with them. So then I thought, well, maybe they're just dry, and sometimes they stick when you're trying to put them on the arm. So I dunked them in water to loop them up a little bit, and then tried to slide them on. But again, and louder this time, she said, no, Daddy, no, no, no. And now it's loud enough that the other people in the pool are looking at me. So, like, it's okay, it's okay. I said, Addie, what do you want? What's wrong? Just tell me what you need. So she grabs the water wings, and she turns, and she walks to the other side of the pool, and she just tosses over against the wall. And then she walks back to the side of the pool again, where I'm standing in the water, and she reaches down. She lifts up my arms so that they're up like this. And she said, now, Daddy, 1, 2, 3, jump. And she jumped into my arms. As she lands in my arms, we kind of splash in the pool. She surprised me. I wasn't ready for it. And we sat there for just a couple minutes getting used to the water. And then she started to push away from me. what the heck she's doing. This kid doesn't know how to swim. What's she going to do? So I'm trying to grab her, and she's wiggling around, and finally, the only way that I can hold her is I put my hand kind of under her bottom as a shelf. And as soon as I did that, it was like something clicked for her. All of a sudden, this huge smile comes on her face, and her arms and her legs just start going in a doggy pattern. Now, she couldn't do it on her own. She wasn't really keeping herself afloat. She needed me to keep her buoyant. But she was swimming, man, and she was so proud of herself. She's looking around, making sure everyone can see her as she's swimming back and forth, back and forth. And every once in a while, she'd actually get a little ahead of herself, and she'd slip kind of off my hand. And she'd reach back and grab me until she was steady enough, and then we'd go along again. It was great because I realized that she understood something really smart. That with the water wings on, she couldn't swim like that. She could just float. But if she had me holding her, she could actually swim around the pool a little bit more. I give her a lot of credit. She's smarter than me. It's not bad. And as I look back on it, as I read our scripture for today, I realized that experience taught me a lot about what Jesus is trying to teach us in our gospel lesson for today. Jesus starts it right off with, "Don't be afraid, little flock." I love it when he starts his lessons with that kind of caring. Because he understands a lot about what these people are trying to learn. The way that the church here is broken up, it's in half this year. And the first half of the year focuses on who Jesus is, who he is in our lives, what he's all about. The second half of the year, which is the part that we're in now, is all about how to live as Christians, how we're supposed to be as disciples. And you probably caught on. For the last month, it's been all about keeping our eyes open, seeing God in our lives, how we can care for those who are in need around us. The second half of Jesus' story is all about keeping watch and keeping our eyes open. But the first half of the gospel, and what Paul writes in our Hebrews passage, is all about how we have faith. And I realized as I read that passage that having faith is just like being a kid standing at the edge of the pool. We're standing there, and just as Jesus says, "Don't be afraid," we're all petrified while we stand there, because that water's deep and it's uncertain. We stand there and look into the water of our life, of uncertainty, of pain that we have, of relationship problems, of job loss, of financial problems, of sickness, of death. All of those things that scare us, that are there before us. That's the water. And we live in a world that tells us in order to survive all of those troubles, we have to put water wings on and flotation devices around us. The world tells us that we have to build up money to help us get through. We have to have good cars, good houses. We have to have the right clothes. We have to have all the right things, because those are the things that are going to keep us afloat. But what Jesus says to the disciples and to us is that all of these things, while we think they keep us safe, while we think they keep us healthy and get us through these tough times, ultimately they impede us. They hold us back. Because if we keep those things on us all the time, we'll never learn how to swim on our own. We'll never learn how to navigate that water and that trouble and all of those things, all of those obstacles, if we insulate ourselves with all of those things. So what Jesus tells them and tells us is to give away all our possessions, to give it all up, and that way we'll be able to trust God more. Now, I think Jesus is using that as an example. I don't think he means it necessarily literally. Although if you want to give away all your possessions, you can certainly give them to the church. We'll find a good place for it. But that's not what Jesus has in mind. I think what Jesus is saying is the key is to understand that we can't rely on our possessions. We can't rely on the things that we've accumulated to be the things that will get us through times of trouble. Because ultimately they don't work. Ultimately they hold us back. What Jesus is telling us is that as we stand there afraid, we have to have the faith, we have to have the courage to take that leap into the water, knowing not that Jesus will keep us from any kind of trouble, not that Jesus will keep us from any kind of pain or heartache or financial troubles or any of those things. But having the faith and the courage to know that Jesus promises something much better for us. Jesus promises us that He's already in the pool. He's already in the water because He's already experienced heartbreak. He's already experienced betrayal. He's already experienced sickness and death and all of the things that scare us the most in this world. And He's there waiting with open arms to carry us through. All He asks is for us to have the faith to take that leap into His arms so that He can hold us, so that we can start to tread water, so that we can start to get stronger, until we can eventually swim for ourselves. It's that leap that's the tough thing, though, you know, isn't it? Because we stand there and we see that water and we don't see Jesus sometimes. But what Jesus promises us, what Jesus intends for us, is that as we look into that water, we see all kinds of faces, all kinds of open arms. That's what this is all about. It's all of our friends, all of our family, all of those good Samaritan strangers that come along and help us stay afloat when we feel like we're going to go under. That's what God gives us all this for. So that we can see the faces of Jesus all around us, ready to help us in our times of most trouble. And so we do make that leap as people of faith, and we do get stronger, and we realize we can make it through. And there's moments where we go under. There's moments where we're not sure if we'll get through, but every time God promises that hand will come to keep us safe, to keep us above water. And as we get stronger and as we get our legs under us, God only asks that we turn back to the shore, that we turn back to the edge of that pool where there are so many people standing there with their knees knocking. So many people who don't know how they're going to get through, who don't know how they're going to take that leap and get across that water. And what God asks is that we turn, that we open our arms and say, it's okay. We're here. We're in the water too. We'll swim together. We'll make it through this together. It's an act of courage. It's an act of faith. It is an act of amazing grace. But God is calling each and every one of us to stand up, to take off all of those safety devices, all of those comforts, and take that leap into His arms.